ChatGPT. Most software is built to do one thing. Word writes documents, Photoshop edits photos, and Excel turns ordinary people into part-time accountants. You learn what the software does, then you use it for that specific purpose. ChatGPT is different because nobody can quite agree on what it's actually for. Some people use it as a search engine, others use it as a writing assistant, coding tool, tutor, translator, brainstorming partner, or business assistant. The strange part is that all of those people are using the exact same product. What made ChatGPT explode in popularity wasn't that it was the first AI chatbot. It wasn't. The difference was accessibility. You open it, type something in normal language, and it responds in a way that feels surprisingly natural. No instruction manual, no training course, no learning curve measured in YouTube tutorials. For millions of people, ChatGPT became the first AI tool that felt genuinely useful on a daily basis. It didn't just introduce people to an app, it introduced them to AI itself. Gemini. Google already owns one of the most valuable tools on the internet. Every day, billions of people open a browser, type a question, and expect an answer within seconds. For more than 20 years, that process barely changed. Gemini is Google's attempt to make sure AI becomes part of that tool rather than replacing it. Instead of existing only as a separate chatbot, Gemini is designed to live inside Google's ecosystem. Gmail, Docs, Android, Search, Maps, Drive, and practically every other Google product people interact with throughout the day. The goal isn't just answering questions, it's helping people work with the information they already have. Gemini can summarize email chains that somehow became longer than college essays, analyze documents, interpret screenshots, answer questions about files, and connect information across text, images, and other formats. The result feels less like opening a dedicated AI assistant and more like discovering your existing software suddenly gained a second brain. If ChatGPT feels like visiting an AI, Gemini feels like Google quietly installing AI into places you were already using anyway. Claude. Most AI models are optimized to answer quickly. Claude often feels like it was optimized to answer carefully. Created by Anthropic, Claude built its reputation around handling large amounts of information without immediately losing track of what's happening. While most people don't regularly need to analyze hundreds of pages of text, the people who do tend to care about it a lot. Claude became particularly popular among researchers, writers, lawyers, and anyone whose job involves staring at enormous documents until meaningful patterns eventually appear. It can work through research papers, technical reports, contracts, books, and long conversations while staying surprisingly organized. Its biggest strength is structure. Instead of rushing toward an answer, Claude often breaks information into pieces and works through them methodically. The longer and more complicated the material becomes, the more valuable that approach tends to be. The trade-off is that it can sometimes feel less casual than other AI systems. But when you're dealing with a 300-page report, personality becomes significantly less important than consistency. Perplexity. For years, researching online meant opening 15 browser tabs, reading 3 articles, ignoring 12 others, and somehow ending up more confused than when you started. Perplexity looked at that process and decided there had to be a better way. At first glance, it looks like a chatbot. You ask a question and get an answer. The difference is that Perplexity was built around finding information and showing you where it came from. Instead of simply giving a response, it provides sources alongside its answers so you can verify what you're reading. That sounds simple until you realize how unusual it is. Most AI tools answer questions. Perplexity answers questions and immediately shows its research. For students, researchers, journalists, and anyone who occasionally wonders whether the AI just invented a fact 5 seconds ago, that's a very useful feature. The result feels less like chatting with an assistant and more like having an intern who actually cites sources. Grok. Most AI companies try very hard to sound professional. Grok took one look at that strategy and decided to have a personality instead. Developed by xAI, Grok was designed to be more conversational, more humorous, and generally less corporate than many competing assistants. Whether that's a benefit or a drawback depends entirely on how much personality you want your software to have. What makes Grok particularly interesting is its connection to X. Because of that relationship, it often has access to discussions, trends, and internet conversations happening in real time. While other models are answering questions, Grok is often plugged directly into whatever argument the internet is currently having. The result is an AI that feels less like reading a manual and more like talking to somebody who spends far too much time online. DeepSeek. For a long time, people assumed the most advanced AI models would only come from a handful of giant American technology companies spending billions of dollars. Then DeepSeek showed up and made that assumption look a little less certain. Developed in China, DeepSeek attracted enormous attention because it demonstrated surprisingly strong performance while being far more cost-efficient than many people expected. Suddenly, the conversation wasn't just about who had the biggest budget. It was also about who could build capable models more efficiently. For users, DeepSeek feels similar to other major AI assistants. It can answer questions, help with coding, explain concepts, write content, and assist with research. But its larger significance isn't necessarily what it does. It's what it represents. DeepSeek reminded the industry that AI competition isn't happening between 2 or 3 companies. It's happening globally. And when one new model can shake stock markets and dominate technology headlines overnight, people tend to pay attention. Microsoft Copilot. Microsoft has a unique advantage in AI because it already owns the software many people spend their entire workday using. Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams. Millions of office workers open those applications every morning, whether they want to or not. Copilot is Microsoft's attempt to place AI directly inside that workflow. Instead of opening a separate chatbot, users can generate presentations, summarize meetings, analyze spreadsheets, and create documents without leaving the software they're already using. This matters because most people don't actually want another app. They want their existing apps to require less work. Copilot is designed around exactly that idea. If ChatGPT feels like an AI assistant, and Gemini feels like an AI layer inside Google's ecosystem, Copilot feels like Microsoft looked at office work and asked, "How much of this can the AI do for you?" Suno. For most of human history, making a song required at least one inconvenient detail. You had to know how to make music. Then Suno arrived and made that requirement significantly more optional. Suno is an AI music generator. Type a prompt describing a song, and it can create vocals, lyrics, instruments, and a complete track in minutes. You don't need a studio. You don't need expensive software. You don't need years of music theory. You just need an idea. The quality can be surprisingly good, which is why Suno spread so quickly across social media. People suddenly discovered they could create country songs about their dog, emotional ballads about fast food, or surprisingly catchy tracks about literally anything else. Whether that's exciting or mildly terrifying depends on your perspective. Either way, Suno dramatically lowered the barrier between imagining music and actually creating it. Midjourney. For decades, creating high-quality digital art required skill, training, expensive software, and an uncomfortable number of hours staring at a blank canvas. Midjourney changed that equation. Describe an image with text, and Midjourney generates artwork that often looks like it belongs in a movie poster, fantasy novel, or expensive design portfolio. It became famous because of its visual quality. While many image generators focused on speed, Midjourney developed a reputation for producing images that simply looked beautiful. Artists debate whether these images count as art, but regardless of where somebody stands, Midjourney demonstrated something important. The distance between imagination and creation suddenly became much shorter. People who couldn't draw could now create detailed visual concepts in minutes. That's a pretty significant shift for a technology that starts with typing a sentence. Runway. Making movies used to require cameras, actors, editing software, visual effects software, and usually a budget large enough to cause anxiety. Runway is trying to make some of those requirements optional. The company became one of the leaders in AI video generation, allowing users to create, edit, and manipulate video using simple prompts. Instead of spending hours rotoscoping footage or creating visual effects manually, many tasks can now be done with AI assistance. What makes Runway important isn't just the technology itself, it's what the technology represents. For years, creating professional-looking video required expensive equipment and specialized skills. Runway lowers those barriers in the same way that image generators lowered barriers for art and Suno lowered barriers for music. The results aren't perfect. Sometimes AI video still behaves like reality took a brief vacation, but the pace of improvement has been extraordinary. And that's really the story behind all of these models. All these models are trying to answer the same question from different directions. What happens when creativity, knowledge, and software become something you can generate on demand? There's another great video on screen now. Click to watch it.